welcome to Making Across the Curriculum with Project-Based Learning. My name is Tim, and I am a trainer with Newline Interactive, and it is my pleasure to introduce the one and only Nicholas Provenzano, also known as the Nerdy Teacher. Nick is an award-winning and best-selling author, and he's traveled the world promoting best practices in education and highlighting edtech solutions that keep students engaged in active learning. And his specialty is project-based learning, and he focuses on this in his classroom at University Liggett School in Michigan. So without any further ado, take it away, Nick.
Thanks, Newline, for that awesome introduction. I'm really excited to be able to share with all of you some exciting things in makerspaces, maker ed, in a world where students are online and at home. I've been very lucky to actually have a couple of Newline boards in my school, and we're actually adding some more during the second half of the year. The X series has been wonderful in our Makerspace because it has a built-in camera, and so my students that are learning at home are able to really jump in very easily to the classroom as my students are also learning in the class. So it's been a great sort of give and take with kids at home and online, and I'm really excited to share with all of you some of the tips and tricks that I've been able to use to really make making a wonderful part of kids learning no matter where they are. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And here we are. Making across the curriculum with project-based learning. So I'm really going to dive into the different aspects of making with project-based learning in all content areas, and what does it look like in person and at home. So this is me. I'm the Nerdy Teacher. You might recognize me from other sessions I've done in the past. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at the Nerdy Teacher. So for me, the big question that I like to establish, people ask, what is making? What is it exactly? So making is the creation of something new that was not there before. I know that sounds like a really broad topic, and it is for a reason. I like to make this definition, this concept, this topic as broad as possible because unfortunately, a lot of people spend time telling you what making isn't. And I hate that because it excludes. For me, making is an inclusive act. And so I want everyone to feel great about what they are making, whether that is something with pottery, whether it is knitting, whether it is digital. Making is the creation of something that wasn't there before. And we want to empower students to feel like they are able to do that. So part of that is making room for the A in STEM or STEAM. And why is that important? Because the arts make things beautiful, and creating in the arts is sort of taken for granted, right? Oh, you create. But as STEM, when you add that A to STEM and make it STEAM, you've created this different environment where now the arts are a part of the science, technology, engineering, and maths, because it is school, right? Once you have STEAM, aren't you really just talking about school? And you can add more letters. I've seen other variants, but we're talking about school, we're talking about learning. So when we're looking at learning as a whole, the value of making, especially through project-based learning, is evident. So what is it about? Well, at its base, making is about having fun and learning. It's an act that we have been participating in as humans from a very young age. We learn by playing. We learn by creating things. As little kids, we take whatever we have around us and we play with it. We make stories. We make crazy inventions, and we have this fun while we're doing it. And it's a part of our system. Unfortunately, our education system moved away from that. And it's the middle school type years is where it seems to start, where all of a sudden it's sit in desks, sit in rows, take your notes. We're preparing you for high school, and high school says we're preparing you for college, and then college says we're preparing you for business. But those kindergarten, elementary years is all about creation. It's all about having fun and making things. And it's weird that we shift away from that, even though it's very successful in getting kids to learn. So as teachers, we need to start thinking about things. And we have to say, are we asking the correct questions? Are we asking our students the right questions to really empower their learning? Are we asking them, what problems do you want to solve? Look around you, whether it's within this content area or whether it's something, in the community or in the state or something nationally or globally. What is it you want to solve? And through that, what do you want to make? What can you make to address this problem you've identified? And whether you're creating the solution or you've created a solution and that you're creating something to showcase that solution, whether it's a presentation, a story, a song, or you're going to make something physical to represent that, right? I talk about artifacts. Artifacts of learning is a phrase that you'll hear me use because we want to demonstrate what that learning looks like. And it can start to look in a lot of different fashions. And one of them is the teacher created tasks, right? Where teachers, we sort of take charge of what it is the students are going to focus on. It's a very traditional view of what the classroom looks like. So one of them I like to share is Gothic elements in photography. This was by a student of mine, Nicole Scaglio. I asked for her permission to use her photographs because they were so amazing. In a literature class, I taught students were asked to identify the elements of stories that make it a piece of Gothic literature. And so after discussing and researching, I asked the kids to demonstrate their understanding of the Gothic elements in a visual format. And so a lot of different students came up with different approaches. And this one student, she decided to use photography to tell her story. And so as we look at these images, we see a very distinct style that has been created. This image she explored is insanity. There's always an element of insanity, craziness in Gothic literature. And this is a picture of her sister. She did the makeup and she got the hair just right. And there's another one with both of her sisters. This is the sense of impending doom. And when we talk about these photos in class, she went in detail about the effort that she had to spend to wait for the clouds to go away, for the sun to shine through, to get the shadows just right and the wind to blow to get the hair. This is not photoshopped. This is not something, that she spent hours adding pieces to. She took this photo in black and white with her camera. And she'd always been interested in photography as sort of a hobby. She never took photography class. She didn't take any of the arts classes in the high school geared towards photography. But this was her way to demonstrate her understanding of these Gothic elements. Now, this was like 5 or 6 years ago. And when I asked for her permission to use her photographs in my latest book on project-based learning, it was funny because she was able to talk about the photos and what every single one meant and the depth of Gothic literature she went into and the reference she made from the stories. She made those memories. And so 5 or 6 years later in college, she's still able to remember these things. And that's what's so powerful about this, right? Is that we're giving kids an opportunity to create, but they're also creating memory. They're retaining things that, if she had taken a multiple choice test on, the different elements of Gothic literature, she wouldn't have remembered it as well. This is an example. Unfortunately, you can't hear it, but if you really want to see the full video, reach out to me on Twitter @TheNerdyTeacher and I'll share it with you. But 2 students decided to create interpretive dance to represent connecting characters from different stories we've read throughout the entire semester. They chose songs, they did the choreography themselves, they even used symbols in their dance, and it was this beautiful, beautiful piece that they showcased at the end of the year to these students. And one thing that stands out to me was a kid in the back who's relatively quiet, big guy. He watches this and everyone's sort of quiet for a second after it's done. And he stands up and he goes, "I don't know anything about dance, but that was legit. I know exactly what you guys were doing about this character and that character." He goes, "That was real awesome." And, the girls were just like shocked and the kids were like, "That was amazing." And these were a couple of girls that decided to take something that was meaningful to them, their love of dance, and to create something to tell the story, to tell this narrative. Now, they could have sat down and written an essay, but they made something, they created something. And sometimes it's as simple as using a green screen. And here are a couple of kids in Spanish class recording a Spanish version of the SpongeBob SquarePants theme. And they recorded it on the green screen and they put it all together and they sang it in Spanish and they created something fun for their 8th grade class. So we have like a wide variety of things that can be created. And students using 3D design to create boats in a social studies class or design their own version of the Sphinx as they explore more in depth of ancient Egypt. These students are given these opportunities to create, and they're making things that not only just create a physical object, an artifact, right? But they're making memories, they're making connections. And when they're able to do that, they will retain that information much, much longer than sitting and writing an impromptu essay or sitting and taking a multiple choice test. Now, there's also opportunities for students to select these tasks. In a physics class in the high school, these students were exploring rocketry, and they were doing those 2-liter bottle rockets for all the science teachers out there. You fill it with water and then the pressure bursts it. to launch, this student said, I want to design fins. Rockets should have fins. Like everyone's just making cones. Like, what if I 3D designed fins? And he dove into how fins work and what they would look like and how do they add to the rocket's trajectory and its distance. So this was a rough draft of the student's 3D design there. And the fins aren't perfect, but that's why it's rough draft. And so he made many iterations of this process, learning how fins can actually improve rocketry. It's a great example of student chosen tasks, because I am a big proponent of Genius Hour or 20 time. That's where you give students a set amount of time every week or every day, depending on what your schedule allows for, to explore something that interests you. And so Jacob in my English class as a sophomore wanted to build a boat and did all this research and worked with his grandfather to build a boat. And we have this amazing boat that he made over the course of a year. And then it took him over the summer. He finished it in the fall. And he called me and he's like, Mr. P, I want to be able to take you on that boat ride like I promised. It works. And here's a picture of the boat and me on it, white knuckled because I can't swim. So I was terrified. That's my dark, terrible secret living in Michigan, is that I never learned to swim. And when I promised that I would ride the boat with him, the kids were like, oh, Jacob, don't kill Mr. P, man. He can't swim. It was like sort of a joke, but he built this. And his mom was there and taking all these pictures. She was crying because her son like built this boat with his grandfather. It was this awesome moment. And you fast forward, and I got an email from Jacob about a year ago where he said that he was applying for engineering school. And he wrote an essay that was supposed to answer, why do you want to be an engineer? And he said that his professor said he had the most uncommon essay because the topic was, I decided to be an engineer in my English class. He said he'd never seen a topic like that. So here's a student that found a love of engineering through this process of giving him an opportunity to explore something that he was passionate about and learn to do research and learn to explore and understand what it takes to make something to demonstrate understanding. This picture is from a couple of years ago. It's entitled for B, Who Run the World? And I had this awesome moment where I looked up and I saw the makerspace filled with these young girls exploring learning completely on their own. This was not a school assignment. This wasn't for a project. The kids came to the makerspace and just started to explore what was there. So I have students looking at the 3D printer. I have multiple young ladies looking at the coding and building and physical computing. And they did all this on their own. The space was just available to them. And that's really gave me this empowered feeling of, wow, granting access to students really creates an amazing dynamic where kids will engage in things that they might not engage with if they're directed to do it in a classroom. So as we look at what making is, it's about having kids have access. And when you can give more access to students, you also establish more equity so that all kids in the school have access to the same materials. So what tools work in a makerspace? What do we offer to students? And I get this question all the time, like, what should I buy? And I love/hate that question because makerspaces need to evolve to support the learning of the students in your building. What works for my students might not work for your students. Their interests might not be the same. So I try to give a broad spectrum of tools that I've used, that other schools have used, that have been successful in working with their kids. But I've broken it up to in-person and at home, because that's what we're looking at right now at 2020/2021 is a lot of in-person and at-home learning. So what does it look like if you're in person, like I am at my school? You can't go wrong with cardboard and duct tape. Always a winner. Kids will always build with cardboard and duct tape. And you can have tons of cardboard in your school, and giving kids access to cut and design and build with it is always a great tool. If you don't want to waste tons of duct tape, you can go with Makedo, which are plastic reusable screws and cardboard saws that you could actually use and create and then take apart and store and use over and over and over again. It's definitely a more eco-friendly way to build with cardboard than just using duct tape. You can never have too many glue guns or glue sticks. I learned this the hard way running my makerspace the first year. I ran out in like April and the kids were freaking out because I didn't have an order ready to go. You'll never know when kids are going to be doing projects in the middle school or the high school level. And so glue guns, you need to have a stack of them ready to go and ready to use. Makeys are great for kids looking to dive into physical computing. They are wonderful to use. You can use Scratch to code them. So block-based coding is great for younger kids as well. it's something I highly recommend you explore if you're looking for more of a tech-based and computing physical hardware aspect to your makerspace. Here's an example of a controller using those little brass brads and a makey connects to a computer, and you've created yourself a little handheld controller, which is really neat. Speaking of physical computing, you can't go wrong with the microbit. The microbit is sort of, in a way, like a makey conceptually, but you can also program it much more. And MakeCode through microbit has a wonderful block-based coding, but they also have a Java and Python. So for older kids looking to explore coding, you can do all of these great pieces. And the microbit has just released a version 2 with a built-in speaker and all these great additives to it. So it's definitely worth checking out. The link there is at the bottom. As we more into physical computing, the Raspberry Pi is great because it's an actual computer. For $35, you can get a full functioning computer. It connects to your HDMI television or monitor. You just need to connect a mouse and a keyboard, and then you have a full functioning computer that you can dive into code. And you also have access to the pins. And the pins allow you to add wires to code a whole host of things. You can add a camera, you can add sensors. So for kids that are really diving into physical computing, the Raspberry Pi is definitely the place to start. And then you break it back down to something more simple, yarn. Tons of yarn. Have all the yarn in the world. Kids love their yarn. But also add sewing machines. Add one. Kids are befuddled when they see the sewing machine. What's this for? And I explain how a sewing machine works. Like, I could make my own clothes. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what sewing machines do. But so many kids have never even seen a sewing machine, and it's kind of crazy to think about. Arts and scraps. You can never have too many arts and scraps. Talking to art teachers, save all of those bits and pieces. You never know how they're going to be used. I just have one big drawer just filled with art scraps. So whenever kids have ends and bits and pieces of the yarn or their pieces of paper and things like that, or cardboard, I put them in this drawer. And sometimes kids are looking for just that right piece. They go into there and they can find something that they can use for their project. Dry erase supplies. I love dry erase markers primarily because you can write on really any surface with them. I have dry erase tables, but you can also buy dry erase paint and paint your tables with that. And it really lasts a great time. You only need to repaint every couple of years. But I love giving the kids the opportunity to draw on tables, to draw on the walls. Because sometimes inspiration, you just want to draw it out and you need to sketch it out. You don't want to use paper, and they have access to these materials. And it really makes for creativity in a fun way. Dremel 3D45, that's my recommended 3D printer. And the main reason for that is that based on price and materials and really its ease of use, the 3D45 is where I go. I have 4 of them, right? Yes, 4 of them in my space. And I love it. I've had them for 2 years. I've had 0 problems. 0 problems. You can definitely look at some other printers, some more expensive ones. I can say that they're nice, but unless your kids are designing for a high-end design class in the high school or college, the 3D45 is perfect. You get quality prints. You can use the kids to learn how to upload through the cloud. So it's cloud-based printing. It's a really great way to really start 3D printing. And then if you really have a core of kids that are looking at high-end art creation with 3D design, then you can look at some of those more expensive ones. But just because it's more expensive does not mean that it's better. Always good to have LEDs. It's always good to have copper tape. And it's always good to have batteries. Those 3 things, once you have them, you can create amazing projects. The battery will light the light and the copper will extend the circuit as long as you need it to. So having those pieces around, it's always fun. Kids sometimes just create simple greeting cards that have a nice little light element to it by learning to fold the battery over to complete the circuit. So definitely something I recommend. Now, when we look at what you can do at home, it's been interesting. I've had to focus on creating projects that allow my students in class at school and my students in class at home be able to work on similar things. And so it's not easy, but I found some really great resources that I highly recommend you check out. Whether kids are at home or if everyone's at school, it's totally worth it. Now you're like, oh, Provenzano made a mistake. You already talked about microbit. I did, but here's the cool part of it. What I didn't talk about before is that on the left-hand side there actually is a microbit. So there's a digital representation of the physical bit. So you can actually code and run your code, and the microbit will actually demonstrate what it is that you're trying to do. So for using the LEDs will blink. If you're waiting to press one of the A or B buttons, you can actually go on the computer and press the A button and the code will run. So it's actually a really neat way to still engage in digital/physical computing when kids are at home or don't have access to those materials. So I definitely recommend you check out that aspect of it, even if you're at home. And that's one of the things I had to do for my students, was allow them access to the physical through a digital way. And it worked out great. Adobe Spark, it's free, spark.adobe.com. You have to check it out. It's great for kids creating something to really showcase what they've built. This is one of the aspects a student created a website. You can create websites, you can create flyers, you can create short videos, and you're getting the awesome Adobe quality that you expect in the project, and it's completely free. And here's an example of students redesigning a space in our school. And they did this using Minecraft Education, which I'm going to talk about right now. Minecraft Education Edition is amazing. It is relatively cheap, depending on how you access these resources for your school, through your community, your area. Every state does it differently. We do it through our local RISA, and it costs us, I believe it's $110 per student for a year. And what they do is have access to all of the amazing aspects of Minecraft, plus additional things that you don't normally see. Here's a picture of so you got a helicopter, we've got a bus, we've got another vehicle, but we also have the Wienermobile, because you can't have a vehicle collection without the Wienermobile. I asked students as their project to create a vehicle that could transport chickens and cows across this lake. And now the objects themselves don't actually move, but the kids were given this opportunity to just be creative, to be silly, but also to problem solve. Like, how much space do I need? How many blocks can fit in the space? It was a fun introduction to using Minecraft. Now, so many kids have used Minecraft and love Minecraft that they really don't need a lot of practice, but there are some that have just never used it. And so this is a great intro to it. Another part of Education Edition that's great is that they have a full functioning chemistry lab. Now, this doesn't sound super interesting, but for science teachers, you can actually have kids do full experiments digitally in Minecraft, and it'll produce outcomes. You can actually have kids do experiments that might be too dangerous for them to do in the real world and have them do it in Minecraft, because if they blow up in Minecraft, it's no paperwork, right? They can blow up as much as they want. You don't want that in person, though. Another one I want to end with here, which is great, is the Makedo Arcade. Makedo Arcade is so amazing because using block-based coding and following the tutorials, students can make their own video games. Now, this is the dream of any kid growing up that wants to make games. This will walk you through the process and how to create games, how to make something amazing. If you want to take it one step further, you can purchase for relatively cheap, and they have examples on there, handheld control boards where you can upload the game to it and the kids can actually play their game on a small handheld device. That is every gamer nerd's dream growing up. I wish I could have had this growing up. Who knows what I would have done or been able to create. But by using simple design, 8-bit technology, kids can create their games, write their code, and design and make amazing things. Imagine asking kids to create a game based on a story that they read or a piece of history that's being covered, right? Giving kids these opportunities to explore and to make and create things is really, really powerful. So as we look at this, they actually have the game to be played on the side there. So you actually have a digital version of it as well. So again, you can play this at home without having a physical game controller in your hand. And that's what we want to do when kids are at home, is to really give them opportunity to have the same experience as students that are working at school. So when we look about this, it's what does it look like in action? These are my students doing an egg drop. And I gave the kids a set bit of resources, and they were given it in a bag, and we all stayed socially distant, and they were given an opportunity to create an egg drop and then drop an egg. And here they are, successfully having kept their eggs safe from the drop of the balcony, which is about 20 feet, I would say, right around there. It's really impressive for them. here they are in a different year, this is the year before, designing mazes and obstacle courses to code a Sphero to drive through. So learning about angles. And one thing that was really tricky for this one is that our floor is a little sloped. So they had to really plan for that slope as they were designing how it was going to maneuver through these obstacles. Kids building and designing in Minecraft. One great challenge I'll share with all of you guys, you totally have to do that, I got from my friend Mary Weaver, who also teaches in Michigan. It's called the Newspaper Shoe Design Challenge. Kids are given 4 sheets of newspaper, a foot of duct tape, and I give them a foot of yarn, and they had to create a shoe. And then they had to market that shoe. We got a slip on there, it's really cute. And then we have a heel. Girls built a heel, which just proves to me that girls just love heels, no matter how uncomfortable they are, even if they're made out of paper. Build a heel, and I love it. It was super creative, and it worked. It actually like held their weight. It was really, really, really impressive. Science, we've been doing this. I mean, we know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell for a reason. It has to do with so many of us having built these models, and these models are still powerful because we've all done it, but it works for a reason. We dive into this project and we create fun, different ways to showcase the different elements of a plant cell. And it works. And so when we think about project-based learning, so many of us have done it in our past as students that it's really easy to take it and bring it into our classroom as teachers. Here was a student last year that wanted to learn woodworking and learn to create a ring on a lathe. And this is just one of the examples she was super excited about. She turned her entire senior year capstone project in exploring woodworking and really the lack of women involved in this trade. And it was really powerful for her because she got to learn to do woodworking, but then all of these middle schoolers got to see this girl work in this and go, wow, she can do this. Well, maybe I can work with these tools, and why can't I do this? And it was really empowering. So when you give kids, again, the opportunity and the access to tools, sometimes they'll find a talent in something that they weren't necessarily expecting. Mousetrap cars, can't go wrong with mousetrap cars. The kids found their own supplies, and again, can't go wrong with hot glue and lots of hot glue and nail guns and things of that nature. String, kids to build these projects, to build these really exciting aspects of their learning and the memories that are created. When you watch kids in a makerspace, they're laughing, they're giggling, they're having fun, and they're creating memories. And that's what we really want to do, right? When we're talking about learning, aren't we talking about memories? Like you're remembering stuff that you've covered. So if kids can create these memories while having fun and being silly and creating things, and more importantly, failing and then learning through that process, that's what we're hoping to create as teachers for our students. For me, when we look at maker education, I have these sort of like these tenets of what it needs to be, right? And it's about being an artist, being a hacker, being a storyteller, being inclusive, being true to yourself, being a dreamer, being passionate, but most of all, being fearless. We need to install these ideas in our students because we need them to face the challenges that are going to be coming down the road. And some of these will be small personal things, and some of these will be large global things. And it's through the creation of projects, it's through the creation of things that are going to address these problems. And by giving kids practice by solving problems, whether they are math problems, science problems, social studies problems, foreign language problems, giving them an opportunity to build things to solve those problems gives them the experience they need when they move on in their life to address even bigger and First, what grade do you think is best to start making or using project-based learning? Great question. I get this regularly, actually. And it's funny because we forget that kids are doing project-based learning since kindergarten. That is the primary way that kids are learning. I mean, if you have kids, think about what they were doing in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. It is project-based learning. They're building things, they're making things, all the stuff that's coming home, and the collection of things I already have stored for my son who's 9 over the years, and what he's doing in art classes and social studies classes. So really there's no age it's too young for project-based learning because that's what kids are doing. they're making things, they're creating things. So, it's actually sometimes tougher to reintroduce project-based learning at the high school level because, like I said, teachers move away from it around the middle school years. And so kids are so used to, sage on the stage, the teacher tells you what to do, you write it down, and then you spit it back out on a test. It was actually, from my experience, tougher to reprogram these students at the high school level to re-embrace project-based learning, to create things to demonstrate understanding. It's actually tougher at the older levels because they've moved away from it. So my school currently, University Liggett School, it's our little logo here, other side, I'm backwards. That's our logo there. We are a independent school outside of Detroit, and we are a PBL school. It's one of the reasons I moved from my school to here was that I embraced PBL K through 12. So it's nice because the high school kids, they are used to it. They've been with the school the entire time. And if they have, they embrace it because it's a part of them. It's the students that are new to the high school level that actually have some difficulty because they're coming from places where project-based learning isn't part of the traditional learning model. So I say start young, start as young as you can, and try to continue that through the process if you are a part of a larger district to try to implement it K-12 because it really shows the benefits throughout the entire process. The younger you start, and as long as you stick with it, students are successful with this practice in pedagogy. Our next question, how has distance learning affected project-based learning in your classroom? So it definitely forced me to really change my entire approach to learning and what it looked like. So for me, I have students in the classroom physically. We've been together basically all year. We had a week here and there off, but otherwise we've been in the classroom all year round. And it was tough because for me, it wasn't about trying to create something for my kids in the classroom and then finding out a way to make it work for kids at home. I thought that was unfair to do that to the kids who have to stay home for health reasons and stuff. So what I did was I just rethought what this class could look like. So I run a design class. It's for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. There's a level 1 for 6s and level 2 for 7th and 8th graders. It's a class that every single 6th grader takes. It focuses on design thinking, and it's part of that is project-based learning. So it's really working with kids through the problem-solving process and the design thinking process and how you address these problems. So for me, I wanted to create things that, one, would rely on digital design. And the reason for that was that it brings equity for kids at home and kids in the classroom. Now, for kids that I wanted to build physically, like the egg drop projects, I created little bags for every single student, and students were able to get those sent to their home. Their parents came and picked them up from the school so the kids at home could build their egg drops as well. So what it had me do was just reimagine what that learning looks like. And what's great about my students building in Minecraft was that it's a collaborative tool. So kids at home could jump into a world with kids in the classroom and they can build together. We had students building their, what did they build? Oh, they were building model homes for Mr. Provenzano based on asking me questions. So it was a contest on who could build the best house for Mr. P. So it really was looking at how you can collaborate at home and in person. And with things like Makedo, where kids are making their own arcade games and programming their own microbits, it allowed for this collaboration. So my class is a trimester class, which is really nice. And I think what's great about it is that it really allows everyone to come together, whether you're at home or you're in person in the classroom. Next question. What kind of activities, exercises do you recommend for someone just starting out with a Makerspace? The best thing I can tell you is to really get a sense of what your students know and what they're good at. Kids love crafting. Having basic crafting supplies around and asking them just to create simple things is a great way just to get a feel for what kids can do. In the digital realm, like I said, Minecraft is great because so many kids know Minecraft. They've used it, they've played with it. And so giving them something digital to build from the start is wonderful. So if that first project I give my students is build me a house, and they're not allowed to ask any questions. So then I go and tour their houses and I tell them all their houses are no good for me to live in. And then we talk about the importance of asking questions when you're trying to design something for someone, the value of asking questions and exploring. So they ask me a whole bunch of questions, and then they build houses that are all very awesome and meet my needs in different ways. So that's a fun way to sort of get started digitally. Physically, again, it's just having kids use crafting materials. Craft sticks is another great tool to have in your house. You can't go wrong with craft sticks. So the different type of projects, the newspaper shoe one I designed, my friend created and I used in my class and my students designed with. 4 sheets of newspaper, a foot of tape, and a foot of yarn. Design a shoe and then design an ad campaign for it. And the kids use Adobe Spark for that. So those are great, simple ways with really accessible tools that even a kid could have at home, which my students did. The tape and the newspaper are things that you can have at home as well. So those are great for beginners. Next question, are there any new tools you'd recommend for distance learning? Oh, wow. For me, the newest tools for distant learning that I have to recommend would be the Microbit and the Makecode Arcade. That's the one that is new for me this year that I'm using, and the kids love it. It's just amazing. The coding is easy as it's block-based, but also can be tough for those kids that want to explore Python and JavaScript. So I highly recommend looking at those tools as well. And Adobe Spark, if you're looking at design and creation, using Adobe Spark, if your school already has an Adobe account, which they probably do, then all the kids can get free premium accounts, which is amazing. It's a Google sign-in, and so the kids have access to all the premium features. But even if you don't have premium accounts, the regular is great too. I highly recommend you check it out. It's spark.adobe.com. And my kids use that to create their advertisements and their stories that really sell the things that they're building. And that's the important aspect I tell the kids. You can create the most amazing thing in the world, but if you don't know how to share that story, it's not going to get out there. So I would say those are the tools I would highly recommend that are new to me and new really to a lot of teachers who are really embracing making and project-based learning from a distance learning perspective. So if you want to learn more about project-based learning and Maker Ed and Makerspaces, I have 3 books that you can check out. There's my bit.ly down there at the bottom. Your Starter Guide to Makerspaces really explores what it was like to build a Makerspace from start and really all the mistakes that I made and all the things I learned from those mistakes. The Maker Mentality is about the culture of making that really needs to be installed in your school if you really want kids to really invest and teachers to invest in project-based learning and making. And then my latest book is the Beyond the Poster Board, Project-Based Learning in the ELA Classroom. I spent 15 years as an ELA teacher, but really this book is for anyone that wants to explore project-based learning and what it could look like in their classroom. So I want to thank you guys for coming to the session. I want to thank again to Newline for having me do this and record this for you guys. And I really can't wait to answer any questions that you might have now or, of course, later on Twitter. You can reach me out on Twitter at The Nerdy Teacher or on Instagram at The Nerdy Teacher, where I post tons of student projects and some of the things that I'm working on too. So thank you guys very much. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your day.